there was something that you pointed out, which was from Aladdin, a 1992 Disney cartoon, which was a huge, massive hit. It was hilarious in many parts. It was a popular cartoon. But the opening sequence actually has some Islamophobia right embedded in the song. So what do we have? We have the angry terrorist, the bumbling sheikh, the sultry belly dancer, the good Muslim versus the bad Muslim. So without a doubt, all stereotypes that you've seen in your favourite Hollywood film or television programme. According to a new report, Huck and Hollywwod, illuminating 100 years of Muslim tropes and how to transform them, this representation has fueled anti-Muslim sentiment and even shaped government policies. Huck is the Arabic and Urdu word for reality. Things are beginning to change, though, on screen, behind the camera and in the writer's room. I'm calling this the new face of Hollywood. Welcome, Hollywood. Nice to see you. May, I'm just thinking, it feels to me like a no-brainer. Why would you have to write a report about the lack of representation of Muslim faces or Arab faces on TV and Hollywood movies? Obvious.
It is obvious when we look at the landscape right now, but I wanted to hit at the heart of how entrenched those images are and the narratives that are fueling them so that we could properly eradicate the consistent place we see ourselves in, which is more and more stories about terrorism, more and more stories about the sheikh and the bumbling fool, more and more stories of women being misrepresented. So this report takes a 100-year history to figure out how we ended up here with policies like the Muslim ban. And it's not just simply a post-9/11 moment of terror genre films. I mean, we saw a whole crop of them in the 1980s and 1970s in response to U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. And concurrently, as the report goes into, there are, as Amina does an amazing job speaking to, Black Muslims who are portrayed in really derogatory ways by the American public, but Black filmmakers fight back with really differing portrayals, whole portrayals. And so this long history is essential for us to understand not only how we got here, but how we don't repeat our mistakes. And also, I highlight the really interesting work that Muslim creatives are doing in this moment and how they're pushing back against this narrative. And lastly, and there's an interview with Rami Youssef, who has a show on Hulu coming out in the next season, the 2019 season. But I end with recommendations. So how can we break this cycle? And the report talks about how we find ourselves in this place over and over again, and how we can use community members to disrupt it.
I have a theory that sometimes people don't even realize that they're seeing a trope or a stereotype. It sort of goes over their head. There was something that you pointed out, which was from Aladdin, a 1992 Disney cartoon, which was a huge, massive hit. It was hilarious in many parts. It was a popular cartoon. But the opening sequence actually has some Islamophobia right embedded in the song, the chirpy little song. Do you remember a little bit of the song, May?
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you to sing it, but quote it to us.
I mean, I think anybody that grew up as a child with that representation, especially if you grew up Arab in America, you can never forget those lyrics. So in the movie theaters, on giant screens, you heard, they cut off your ear if they don't like your face. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home. And so because of the great organizing work that ADC, Anti-Arab Discrimination Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, apologies, the work that they did, also Jack Shaheen, the late media studies scholar, pushing back against what Disney was doing, they did get the lyric to be changed in the VHS release. But now Disney is making a live action remake of that film in 1992. And because of how they've had enough time to look at what that film has done, the damage that it's done, they don't want to repeat those mistakes.
Sure. Amina, what are you seeing right now where you're seeing this is not representing me?
Well, I think that for me, I'm Black, obviously, and Muslim, and I think that it goes back to what Malcolm used to talk about, like the original discussion about Black or Muslims who were Black in America, and the definition not even being from Muslims who are Black and, being called Black Muslims. So there's a way that even when you see representations of Black Muslims or Muslims who are Black, they are not a part of the whole conversation of Muslims. So we're sort of othered in that. And that is because I think the relationship that Black people have in this country in terms of how we were, brought over here in the transatlantic slave trade.
Sure.
Even the discussion about Islam in America and how when we think about the slaves in during antebellum South and the idea that there are actually Muslims who are practicing, Black Muslims who are Black practicing Islam, but that is often left out of history books and certainly left out of the discussion of that in cinema. So for me, it's about sort of, I take like the idea, I think about it as redefining what people expect in terms of what it means to be Muslim. And I'm a Muslim who is Black, but who's very American, right? Yeah. So I think about the Muslim ban and how that ban is also a ban of the of African countries as well, but the face of the Muslim ban doesn't seem to have that.
So Amina,
African face.
So Amina, for instance, you're not coming to America to be a terrorist, or you're not coming as an immigrant, because you live in America, and Black Islam goes back many, many years. You mentioned Malcolm.
Well,
Malcolm X.
Well, it predates even Malcolm X, who
exactly.
El-Hajj Malik Shabazz. It predates. It's from the very beginning when Black people come to this soil, and I would argue that we get left out of that conversation, and it's a monolith, right? So we don't think about Muslims who are Black as being. We only think of them as being in the Nation of Islam partially, or mostly, or we're even left out of the trope discussion because we actually can't hold that trope discussion for Black bodies and Muslims. I think I do this experiment where I ask people to close their eyes and I say Black Muslim woman.
Yes.
And I don't think people are able to hold that, right? So there's that way when you think of Black, you think of usually a man, you think of like a bad man, a bad Black man, right?
Sure.
And
let me help people out a little bit. Anybody who watches the stream will be able to picture a Black Muslim American, because my co-host is Malika Bilal, so she is out there representing. Salam, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that Hollywood has been guilty of both religious and racial stereotypes of a lot of people. And when it comes to Islam and Muslims, the trope that is usually bandied about is that Islam is a foreign religion. And so whether you are indigenous or immigrant, whether you're African American or Arab American or Pakistani American, I think we're all basically we're all struggling with these stereotypes. So there are many different paths that we are taking in terms of dealing with these Hollywood tropes.